You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast, your guide to living a more purposeful life. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of the On Purpose Podcast, where you know what we do. We try to inspire, move you, get you thinking, get you moving your bodies a little bit, just get you living a life that you deserve and that the people you love deserve to have you showing up with. So we're excited to be here with you and to bring on a guest from across the pond, as they say. This week I'm going to sit down with a friend of mine. I was just recently on his podcast, so be sure to be looking for that. Duncan Brown. He's a guest that has a whole community built around sobriety, and not just talking about it, but helping people build it piece by piece. Duncan is the host of the Flat Pack Sober, a podcast that's as practical as it is profound. And he's taken his own journey through addiction and recovery and turned it into a blueprint for others, offering tools, stories, strategies to help his listeners construct a sober life that actually fits them. Duncan's approach is refreshingly honest, deeply human, and rooted in the idea that sobriety isn't just about quitting, it's about creating and becoming something beyond that. Whether he's interviewing sober superstars or breaking down the overwhelming of online advice, Duncan brings clarity, compassion, and a touch of humor to his conversation. So I'd be curious what you think on this on our conversation. Be sure to get over and share your comments with us. Be sure, please like, subscribe, share on your favorite platforms. Connect with us on Instagram and YouTube, as that's where we're putting a lot of our energy to try and continue to grow there. And remember, something as simple as a comment or like or subscribe helps us fulfill our mission of being one of the most impactful podcasts in the world by reaching more people. So thank you so much for being here. Enjoy this week's conversation with Duncan Brown. First responders, your strength, speed, and safety matter. That's why Veritas Athletic Performance delivers remote training built just for you. Led by Coach Matt Erdman, a 14-year law enforcement veteran and certified coach, our programs focus on movement, not just muscle, to boost performance and cut injury risk. Through the Train Heroic app, your training is personalized, monitored, and adapted wherever you are. Train smarter, serve stronger, and protect what matters most. Veritas Athletic Performance, your readiness is our mission. Looking for the perfect escape? Step off the grid and into the wild heart of Old Florida at the Hideaway, a nature-based family campground tucked along the legendary Suwannee River just an hour west of Gainesville. Whether you roll in with an RV or pitch a tent beneath the canopy, the Hideaway offers 1,500 feet of boardwalk through untouched hammock, riverside trails to secret picnic spots, fishing holes, local springs, and a kind of peace that lingers long after you leave. Reconnect, recharge, remember what matters. Visit thehideawayfl.com to plan your stay. Duncan, my newest friend, actually my old friend, because we just had this conversation not too long ago, but I'm excited to welcome you to the On Purpose Podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. I am really looking forward to having a good old chat again. I enjoyed the last one.
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't listened to it yet, get over to Duncan's podcast and hear our first conversation. It'll probably make a lot more sense to you. The Flat Pack Sober podcast.
Yeah. That actually will actually be live by the time this one comes out. We're a bit rubbish at releasing episodes. We tend to hoard them a little bit, but no, this is definitely going out before. No, this one's going out. Yeah, your listeners are smart. They'll figure it
They'll
out, right?
figure it out. They're smarter than us, Duncan, which is the crazy thing, right? They're smarter than us, so, well, we'll let them figure it out. And Duncan, welcome to the show, man. I want to start by saying thank you for being you, right? And what I mean by that is thank you for the changes you made in your life that put you on the path of a life you want to live. And more importantly, thank you for sharing that story with the world so that others can learn, maybe identify some things in their life they can change, and realize that if we can change, they can change. So thank you for having that courage.
Well, yeah, likewise, and thank you also. And you know, I think we almost do have a bit of an obligation to let people know about the changes that we've made in our lives, because it wasn't that long ago I was the other side of all of this, and I did not believe that things could change. I thought that was just the way it was. I thought that was how life was. And actually hearing from other people and realizing that there is a way out, that was what did it for me. So I think we really do have a responsibility, sometimes I think even an honor, to share our story.
Yeah, I like that word honor, right? Because it is just like we're talking about with the podcast. It's an honor to show up and have somebody give this part of time of their life to us and to the stories, and hopefully we're leaving them better than we found them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you can give me your money. I'm not going to object. I always appreciate people giving me money, but I think there's something even more valuable in somebody sharing their time with you and sharing their wisdom and their experience and their expertise. That is the gift that nobody else can give, isn't it? Any old fool can give me money.
All right, Duncan, before we get going, because I want to get to your story and I want to get to the lessons you've learned, I got to warm you up, dude. Welcome to the U.S. side of things. Welcome to my side of the podcast. You had some good warm-up questions on your side. A lot of IKEA stuff that I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest IKEA guy, but I'm not eating those meatballs, Duncan.
Absolutely, neither am I.
And since we last talked, I finished that 30-mile run we told you we were training for.
Oh, nice work. How did it go?
Super awesome, man. It was everything I hoped it would be. It was fun. It was challenging. Met a lot of amazing people. And now we've set our sights next year, Duncan. We're doing a 100-mile run.
So all in one go.
All in one. And so get your running shoes going. You can fly on over. I'll take you with me.
Yeah, no, I only do endurance dancing. I don't do long distance running. I just do long distance dancing.
Well, let's trade. You come do a run. I'll fly over there. We'll dance for hours.
I think we've just talked ourselves into something, haven't we?
All right, Duncan, let's get you warmed up, my friend. If you get one word to describe you, what's your word?
Humorous.
I love it. And would you say that's always been your word throughout most of your life, or is that something you found recently?
No. That's always been my kind of shtick, and it used to get me into quite a lot of trouble. And then, eventually you sort of realize that's actually a bit of a superpower, isn't it? So.
I love it. All right, what's a favorite quote that kind of goes in your head, or something you've lived by and repeated throughout your life?
I do love quotes. I've got the Hamlet in my head at the moment, so it's probably going to have to be "To thine own self be true, and it shall follow us the night, the day. Thou canst be false to any man." So, but yeah, be true to yourself. I think it's a fairly good way to go, isn't it?
Super good. All right, you get a theme song that describes your life. What would your song be?
So many great songs out there. There's the Eminem one that I really, really like, and I can never remember the title of, but it's the one where he goes on about how he had to go there because he couldn't get here if he didn't go there. I think that one always strikes a bit of a chord with me, even though I can never remember the name of it, because that's, my view of life now, that I don't regret what happened. I did a lot of really, really stupid stuff that I kind of wish I hadn't, but I don't regret it because I like where I am now. And if I hadn't have done what I did, I wouldn't have got where I got. So that sums it up. And one day I'll be able to remember the name of the track.
Yeah, I have to research it. I'm going to tell you right now, Duncan, I was not expecting Eminem to be that answer from you.
Yeah, everybody says they have an eclectic taste in music. Yeah, I kind of mean it. I told you earlier we were on the way up to Scotland for our holidays, and I did actually listen to quite a lot of bagpipe music on the way up, just to get in the spirit of it. So yeah, Flower of Scotland and Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. You can't say fairer than that, can you?
No, I love bagpipes, and we're big fans of St. Patrick's Day over here when all the bagpipers come over, and there's nothing like that. And I'll tell you, I don't think there's a more moving moment in reflecting on someone's life than when they play the bagpipes at a funeral.
Yeah, yeah. They are a rather interesting instrument, and they do get a bit of a hard time over here. Right? A lot of people are quite rude about them, but I think they do have quite a lot of depth and range. And you're right. I mean, there's a local pipe and drum band. To me, not that I live in Scotland, I live in Oxford. But anyway, there's a local pipe and drum band, and when they really get up a full head of steam, they are an impressive beast, and they're coming. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely makes a fella proud to be Scottish, which I'm really not. The only Scottish thing on me is my first name.
All right. What's your favorite book or a book you find yourself going back to throughout your life?
Ooh, I've got kind of a shelf full of them. Um, I've Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jerrod Diamond. The Naked Ape by Desmond Morris. Ram on a Hungry Ghost, Gabor Mate. The Tao Cheng. Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche. Fiction. I've read the Foundation trilogy by Isaac Asimov about half a dozen times. I just reread the first of the Dark Materials, Northern Lights. Read that with my daughter. That's called The Golden Compass in America, though. So let's be straight. And the final one of the Dark Materials books is coming out in October, and I've just pre-ordered it. So yeah, that's an entire library.
So not only do you have eclectic music taste, you're a very well-versed reader, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. So books are weirdly important to me. I really, really struggled reading when I was a kid, and I kind of ended up sort of trapped in this place where I really, really loved stories, but I found it quite hard to read, and I sort of pushed on through and got out the other side. And I still read quite slowly, but I think there's a huge advantage in that. People say, "Oh, I'd speed read everything." It's like, don't speed read everything. You don't understand it, do you? You don't take it in properly. So because I read slowly, I remember most of what I read, which is quite handy. And now I probably read about 40 books a year, probably listen to 60, 70 audiobooks as well. And I just, there's so much to find out about the world, isn't there? And books, I think, are a very handy way of doing that.
Yeah, because they take you away from where you are, right? You can travel in your mind with the story. It also lets you see what we can learn, right? Because we get a chance to learn, and I'm with you on that. Like, people tell me, "Oh, I listen to a podcast at 1.5x or 2x, so I can get through it faster." I'm like, well, the whole purpose isn't to get through it faster; it's what do we learn from them?
Yeah, yeah. No, and look, I mean, at a point in my life, I've definitely been guilty of that. I've read books because they're the kind of books that I ought to read, and I can't remember a word of them. But I can tell girls that I've read them, and they'll be very, very impressed. Oh wow, you've read Camus? Oh, that didn't work, by the way. Um, so yeah, I think you've got to you balance reading widely with reading deeply as well, and like actually understanding. And I think that's one of the things that I do try and do is I try and go on these kind of little mini binges on subjects. I did the British Empire earlier this year. Read about half a dozen books on the British Empire. That was a fairly painful experience. I now feel the need to apologise to everybody, Americans. I'm sorry about that. That was us. Yeah. Any Canadians listening? Yeah. Sorry about that as well. We've already mentioned Ireland. Should apologise to them. Where else?
But I think that's one is very funny to share that. But two, I think you're also right? When we read stuff, we're less likely to make the same mistakes that we've made in the past because now we can see the perspective of things.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you could say it's a bit bleak and depressing that well, basically between Aristotle and Elvis, everything has been done, hasn't it? It's like it's all been said before. There is almost no point in saying anything, but actually, that's quite useful, isn't it? Because if
Right.
you've got a problem, it means somebody quite a lot smarter than you has already figured out the solution of it. You've just got to dig out, what they wrote about it.
Yeah. All right, Duncan. One more warm up question. Although I feel like you're warmed up, my friend, I'm gonna give you one more. You
With
you get to have dinner with one person. They could have passed away or still be with us. Who would you have dinner with, and what would you want to learn from them?
So, if my wife's listening, the answer is, of course, my wife. But I mean, there are so many very interesting people throughout history. I would personally choose to have dinner with Jesus. I have a few questions for him. I think that our society, our world really has been very fundamentally shaped by Christianity. And I wonder how much of what Christianity has
Hmm.
done, Jesus would have been keen on. So, yeah, I think it would certainly answer a few questions that have been nagging me for a few years.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that conversation would be like, and yeah, wonder what he would actually think about what we've taken and how we've turned it into what it is today.
I'd certainly have to brush up on my Aramaic, wouldn't I?
All right, Duncan. I feel you're warmed up. Let's hop into your story because I'm really curious about your story and th- take us back to the moment where you said you need to change your relationship with alcohol and what led you to that, please.
Yeah, so I I met this amazing woman, and she's amazing. She's a bit weird, She didn't drink really. Didn't smoke, didn't take drugs. She even ate chickpeas. So kind of like odd, but amazing in her own way. And she for whatever reason, chose to see past all of the glaring inaccuracies in me as a partner. And yeah, we managed to forge quite a good relationship. And we started doing all of the adulty sort of things. And it got to the point where it was like, well, we're proper grown ups now. Let's do the proper grown up thing. So we thought we'd start a family. And that was fun. I mean, the train bit was fun, wasn't it? But and she got pregnant, and we were just the most typical, stupid, naive parents, all smiles, no idea what was going on. And it was all kind of good fun and games until she had a miscarriage, and it really was not fun at all anymore. And, I look back at that time and I am a little bit ashamed to admit that I really was not there for her. She
Mm.
was obviously going through something that was incredibly difficult emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. And my response to hard times was always just to pour myself into a bottle of wine. So it was not a great time in our relationship. And I am confident that my behavior made it quite a bit worse. The only plus of it really was, I suppose, it did force me to that point where I had to sit down and think, you know, what is the point of Duncan?
Mm.
What is he actually here for? Well, what do you want to do with your life, young man? And I never stood in front of the mirror at 4 a.m., moody lighting, music playing, because those kind of things never happen. But if I had have done, I would have looked into the mirror and I'd asked myself the question, what do you want, Duncan? Do you want a drink or do you want a family? And, after a while, it became kind of obvious that I wanted so much more of my life than just drinking the same couple of bottles of wine every night until, you know, well, something terrible happened.
Yeah. What was it? Have you always been a self-reflective person? Younger, would you ask yourself tough questions like that? Because I think a lot of times That's not something we practice doing. And for many people, it takes almost a tragic moment to get them to go, wait a second, what do I want to do? But you were able to stop yourself before it got that far. Is that something you've always been able to do?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think I am naturally a fairly reflective person. If they're like underneath all of the IKEA shtick, there is this basic idea that people learn things in one of four different ways. Either they're very social and they like to learn with other people. Sometimes, it's all about the books and it's all about the reading and it's all about the studying. Some people are very active and they like to get involved and they like to get stuck in. And some people are quite reflective. Now, the reason why I always like talking about IKEA is because the way you build IKEA furniture usually slots into one of those kind of four categories. And the way I build IKEA furniture is to lay everything out, make sure I've got all of the pieces, look at the picture, look at the manual, sit down, have a cup of tea, think about it, and then go and do it. And then if you are watching the video of this, you can see the very nice kind of mark I've got on my head where I butted one of my pieces of IKEA furniture yesterday, and it looks rather like I've been in a barroom brawl. But I promise you, it was furniture. Anyway, yes, I am quite a reflective person. When I was a kid, I would talk to myself quite a lot, which people kind of thought was a bit weird, and now it turns out it's a superpower because it is one of those things that we don't do as a society. We don't value that time to reflect and that time to process what has happened to us, what we have learned. And, one of the biggest dangers I see on the horizon, apart from, cigarettes, junk food, and alcohol, is the fact that we just cram our attention so full of stuff all of the time. It used to be you take the dog for a walk and you'd have a little think, or you'd have a shower, or you'd have a bath and you'd have a little think, or you do the washing up and you'd have a little think. But we don't do that anymore, do we? It's always podcasts when we're walking or audiobooks when we're doing the washing up. And you can even buy TVs for your bathroom. So we've just kind of like eliminated this sort of downtime, this time to reflect and time to think about what's actually happened to us, absorb the information that we hear, and we're just cramming more and more and more information in. So yeah, reflecting is a hugely important part of what I do, and it's something that I've actively tried to do more and more of. Certainly drinking alcohol is not a good way of doing it. So that did get in the way of it. But now I'm in a kind of reflection renaissance.
Yeah, let me ask you, Duncan, do you have, this is always intriguing to me, do you have a moment as a child or a young person when you were reflecting and asking yourself tough questions and maybe, like you said, maybe you were uncommon or people were making fun of you, that you realized what you were doing was a little different than everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say that was the thing that I did that was different from everybody else, because there were one or two of them. But yeah, I mean, I get very strongly that I think was a part of it, that the way we learned in school didn't particularly suit me because it didn't encourage those moments. It was a lot of it was kind of like push, 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 push. Here's more stuff. Here's more stuff. And it was a lot of doing and a lot of receiving of information, which some people process very well. There's also, well, my teachers had expectations. I think that was probably part of the problem. They had expectations and I had expectations, and those expectations very rarely matched up. So there were a lot of things about school that just did not work for me. And that made me feel very, very different. And I think that was part of the reason why I went running initially to chocolate and cookies and junk food, and then to cigarettes and alcohol and drugs. Part of it was because I felt different, like I felt marginalized and alienated. Of course, now I realize it's a superpower. So
yeah. That's so funny because, Duncan, I'll tell you, from when I was a young kid, I always felt like I was going to be different than everybody else. Like I didn't. One, I'm not a conformist, and my parents will probably tell you like that was a big headache for them, as I just wouldn't follow everybody else or do what everybody else was doing. I always kind of set my own path. But there were times when I would share with people like that I that I have these lofty goals for myself, and I think I can like change the world, and I can do stuff like this, not in an arrogant way, but by believing in myself and just doing things. And I did get ridiculed for a lot for it, and made fun of, and questioned, like, why can't I just do what everybody else does? Why do I always have to be so different? And then here, many years later, it's allowed me to create a life that's so far outside the norm that I'm able to share on, and something that's true and unique with me. So I say that to share with you, like, and ask you, when you went back to that time, how did you learn to believe in yourself, to say, hey, it's okay that I can be different. It's going to pay off somewhere? Because I think a lot of people want to do that, but we just kind of give up on the battle and conform somewhere along the way. And I think, before you answer, I think a lot of times we lose amazing gifts from people because they don't go all the way through and explore it.
Yeah, I mean, I think to an extent we also get a little bit trapped, don't we? We always want to do these things, but as soon as you get settled in, you're like, wow, I've got to make the car payments, haven't I? I've got to pay for the house, got to, cover the bills. And then those end up being like a bit of a trap, don't they? And because you get a better job and you got a bit more money, so you just get a bigger house, and just happen before you notice. You really, you can't just go off and do what you want to do. You can't get out of that 9 to 5 treadmill. Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I definitely wanted to do something other than what society seemed to be selling. It didn't particularly attract me. A lot of my friends went on. In fact, a lot of my friends still have quite good jobs because 20 years ago they went off and got quite good jobs, and they've now got even better jobs, and they're happy enough, I suppose. But I couldn't see myself doing that. It didn't really make any sense. I'm like, why would you want to do that? And it has taken a little bit of effort to get where I am, but I'm in a position where I have more freedom than most people do, and that is something that I value, because I want to not work in August. I didn't work in August. And we're recording this in September, and I haven't done that much work in September either, because I'm good at getting back on with stuff. But it's the ability to do that. That is precious, and I don't have as much money as some of my friends. Actually, I don't have as much. I don't have as big a house, because they don't have any money. They just have huge mortgages, don't they? I don't have as nice a car, and I don't have as big a house. But we're not on the breadline, and I did just think the ability to sort of say, well, you know what, I'm just going to spend the morning walking around the park with my wife, and we're going to have lunch together. That's way more valuable than another couple of bedrooms.
Yeah, and I agree with you so much on that, and we're in the same boat. My wife Andrea and I, and our kids are grown and outliving their adult lives, which gives us a whole nother level of freedom. and there's a time in your life. Tell me what you think about this, Duncan. There's a time in your life that you just have to decide whether you're going to believe in yourself and create the life you want, or you're going to just stay on this path of safety, security, and maybe, you have the biggest stuff and the most money in your retirement, but it's not true to you. And whether it's sobriety, pursuing a dream, like going on an exhaustive endurance dance-a-thon with your buddy Duncan in the UK, sometimes you just got to take those leaps and do stuff.
Yeah. No, I think that's, I guess the truth of it is, it isn't really one single moment. It's not like, ta-da, I believe in myself. You have to get out of bed and believe in yourself every single day. But to be perfectly honest with you, if you want to live a conventional kind of life with a 9 to 5 job and 2 dogs and a parakeet, you probably have to do that as well, don't you? Because if you want to, whatever you want to do, you've got to have that element of self-belief. You've got to believe that you can do it, because it. I mean, there's a Nelson Mandela one for you, isn't it? It always seems impossible until it's done.
Right.
That's because if you've never done it, you can't actually know that you can do it. So there is always an element of belief in it. And I think, we don't necessarily credit how important our beliefs are
Mm.
and how much of an impact they have on what we do. How many people want to exercise more, but they don't go to the gym just because they don't believe they're that sort of person?
Yeah, and I love that, and I want to tie that back into something else. What your specialty is and where your expertise is, and that is, if I'm intoxicated, if I'm not sober, no matter what the substance is, I don't have a baseline to react every day. I'm un. People come to me, they don't know how I'm going to respond, depending on if I had a drink of wine, 2 bottles of wine, no matter where it is. And I think sometimes that lack of consistency and showing up for yourself makes it hard to build the foundation to become who you want to be. So talk to me about that, because you talk about the sobriety is something you build, not just something you quit. So what does that look like to you in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that consistency is a very interesting thing, because I think that crosses over to some of the other kind of less obvious problems that we have as a society. If you have your head in social media all day long and you're really thinking about getting back to comment on something when you should be investing time in the relationship that's in front of you, you are going to end up being quite inconsistent, aren't you? So you don't actually need to have intoxicated yourself with a chemical that sort of obviously erodes and damages your judgment. You can actually just do that by not really paying attention to stuff, because your mind is not on what you're doing. Your mind
Mm.
is on, whether that's gaming or eBay or on gambling or pornography or social media or whatever. you know so that kind of inconsistency, I think it comes not simply from the chemicals that we put into our body, but some of our repeated behaviors. And yeah, if you're not really focused on what is going on in front of you, then you aren't really paying attention to life. And that makes life quite hard to live. And it is one of those things that is lived well on a day-to-day basis, isn't it? And if you're not constantly reminding yourself that you are capable of doing these things, that you if you aren't constantly believing in yourself, then a lot of these things, you end up being impossible and
Mm.
being, you're not able to perform at the level that you should be. So I think, in terms of health and well-being, always the thing that you should sort out before you buy a really big water bottle and start drinking 2 liters of water a day. Always you should sort out those kind of compulsive issues around smoking, drinking, drugs, food, and your mobile phone.
Would you say the first step is you got to believe it's possible? Where do you put belief into your ladder of making changes?
And so I put belief as just about the most important thing in terms of making changes. What is the first step is, I think, realizing that you do need to make a change,
Mm.
um, because a lot of the time we just go through life and we think, well, that's life. I honestly believed that the misery and ill health that I passed off, every day, I just thought that was life. I thought that was, well, I'm getting a bit older, aren't I? I've got a stressful life. Of course I feel this bad. And it's amazing once you stop putting all of that junk in your body, how great you feel. So yeah, realizing that there is a problem and that it could be better, I think that is always a good place to start. So if you have just suddenly thought, oh, actually, what, maybe, Duncan, I do need to do something about X, Y, or Z, then, well, congratulations, you have taken the first step.
Mm.
However, you know journey of 1,000 steps starts with Google Maps, doesn't it? Google's not a bad place to start. Actually, you can find some information out. Find some other people that have done it. That is always a good step. But ultimately, my observation, having interviewed hundreds of people, is that what it all comes down to is you change your belief around the behavior. So I used to believe that alcohol helped me to relax, it helped me deal with stress, it helped me to be creative, it made me funny, it made me good looking, all of those kind of things. And I don't believe those anymore. That's the bottom line. I went through all of the stuff that I believed about alcohol. I asked whether it was true and whether it was serving me, and all pretty much all of the above I realized was just a complete load of rubbish. It wasn't helping me. It wasn't getting me any closer to the life that I wanted to leave. So I stopped believing it, and that makes not drinking quite easy. If you don't believe something is going to help you out, well, why would you do it?
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's a good foundational belief. You mentioned something else in there about, being able to Google stuff and find that other people have done things. So now you believe you can do it. So I want to follow up with that little comment and ask, what role do you think community plays in helping somebody make this change, sustain this change, and not have it be a temporary status?
Yeah, so I mean that is a symposium in and of itself, isn't it? But I mean, broadly speaking, I think seeing other people that have made the change that are like you is always a good thing to do, and that's why I think it is important, and I'm quite pleased that more and more people talk about not drinking. So more and more sports people are talking about the fact that they don't drink. So if you like sports, just research Novak Djokovic, or most soccer players these days don't drink. Now, I know this is always a bit of a controversial one, but Tom Brady, I mean, I know he's a bit of an acquired taste, but you can't argue the fact he was quite good at football, wasn't he? And he didn't drink. So, there's loads of sports people out there. There's loads of actors, there's musicians, there's so many famous people out there talking about doing it, talking about living a life without drinking. And I think that helps us to realize that actually, if we want to perform to our best, that's probably going to be a great way of doing it, but also that it is possible that people who are like us and normal and all of that, they don't drink. So there's an important part of the catalyst, understanding that other people have made that change. Now, for some people, the act of getting sober is a very social thing. There are various different group programs out there. Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step programs, pretty much the most famous, but there's Life Ring, Recovery Dharma, Smart Recovery. There's lots of different group programs. So for some people, group programs are a big part of getting sober, but not for everybody. There's also an awful lot of group stuff on social media. There's a lot of Facebook groups about sobriety, rather than a kind of in face-to-face sort of thing. So it can be a part of it. In terms of ongoing and remaining sober, I think connection is one of the most important things. I'd say it's one of the four most important things about remaining sober. And it sort of boils down to this basic idea: if there is nobody worth being sober for, you might as well get drunk, mightn't you? So you've got to have those kind of relationships that make it worth living for, make it worth fighting for. Such an important part of who we are. We are a social species. Also, there's a ton of research about the well-being effects of contact with other human beings and relationships and things like that. One of the mistakes that I see people make is they think that they have to be in a community of sober people. They have to make connections with other people who don't drink. And I don't believe that's true. I think what you have to do is make connections with other people. Now, if you're choosing not to drink, that's often easier with people who aren't drinking. But there is a big difference between people who aren't currently drinking and people who never drink. So, for example, every Friday I roller skate. Now, I don't know what the attitude towards alcohol is for most of the people that I skate with. All I know is they don't skate, they don't drink whilst they're skating, because that would be stupid, wouldn't it? would be properly dangerous. So it's a sober activity, and we are all sober when we do it. And therefore, it is at that moment in time a community of sober people. Whether they go off and drink 6 pints afterwards, I don't really care. But at the time, it is a sober activity. And I think that's one of the things that I try and encourage people to do. Think about activities that don't involve alcohol rather than just socializing with sober people. Because let's face it, sober people occasionally just talk about sobriety all the time. Get quite bored.
Yeah, and I love that. And when you're explaining it, I'm thinking like, I think one of you and I talked about this on your show is our tendency to put everything in a label, right? Because I'm sober now, I only want to be with the sober crowd, and if I'm right, and we have many roles we're going to play in our lives, and many roles we're going to play in society. And yeah, just because I make this change doesn't mean I have to throw everything else in my past out. I can be both.
Yeah, and I mean, my friend Michael Sarsgaard, I think he summed it up really, really well. He said, "Oh, Duncan, I spent a couple of decades drinking, and alcohol defined my life, and then I spent a couple of years getting sober, and alcohol was still defining my life, but it was the not drinking bit of it that was defining it, and now I just want to go and be Michael." And I think, yeah, we are very, very subtle creatures. We wear a huge different amount of kind of identities, or I don't really want to call them masks. That's probably not right. But t-shirts, yeah, I've got a lot of different t-shirts in my closet. And look, on a Friday, I put on my skating shirt. I literally do have a skating shirt with my name on the back. And I go and there are people who only know me. So that's how they know me. I'm that guy at the skate club that they see once a week. But that's not me, is it? There's quite a lot more to it than that.
And I think that's the great thing is that we can do for ourselves is allow ourselves to be all the things. Don't compartmentalize ourselves to where we have to be this one thing. No, you get to be all of them and enjoy all of them, right? Because they're all creating your story.
And often they have a wonderful synergy that sometimes you don't notice until you sort of like put it out there. So a lot of my friends are authors and coaches and speakers and people who don't really work for a living. And I've noticed something about that. They would always put these like grandiose titles on LinkedIn. They'd be like speaker, author, facilitator, podcast host, all of these kind of things. And I'm like, yeah, all right, that's great. And just for a joke, I thought it would be funny to put on my LinkedIn profile, speaker, author, Morris dancer. So I did. And then people started asking me about it, and it started coming up on podcasts, and I started talking about dancing, and that actually led to a couple of really interesting bits in that book, Real Men Quit. It also led to me talking about, so typically Morris dancers do drink quite a lot of alcohol. That's probably one of the reasons why I started doing it. And when I stopped drinking, I continued to do it because it turns out I actually do like dancing, and I do like the guys that I dance with, and I like the community, and I like the places that we go to. And it really helped me to understand something important about how there is so much more to a lot of what we do than just alcohol. We kind of often think that socializing is about the alcohol, but often it's more about the place, the people, the weather, and the activity that you're doing. So, just that kind of like chance thing of kind of just saying, well, speaker, author, Morris dancer, because I thought it sounded funny. It led to a whole load of really interesting ideas. It led to some projects, the endurance dancing that I've done. It's led to thousands of pounds being raised for charity. So, sometimes when you accidentally mix these things together, you get these fantastic results that you never ever could have expected.
And it's uniquely you.
Yes, I used to joke that I was the world's only sober Morris dancer, although I have met a couple since then. And one of my friends who dances stopped drinking. Maybe I was the world's first sober Morris dancer, but I'm part of a movement now.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty, right? That's the beauty, is that it's okay for us to make changes in life. And it doesn't mean we have to turn our back on who we used to be. We can still bring part of who we used to be with us. We're just going to create a new chapter now. And I think that's one of the places I always try to encourage people to do, is give yourself grace for who you used to be, but don't let that limit who you can become.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Don't throw the baby oil out with the bath bomb. That's what I always say.
What's Duncan? What's one belief you held early in your journey that you've since outgrown or realized wasn't even true?
Whoa, just the one. Look, I think there's probably something about the kind of thing that I have to do and feeling compelled and responsible. And it's I think something that I still do struggle with. I do sort of think, you know, I hurt my back the other day, and I was like, I could hardly move. And it's like, yes, but I still have to go and do stuff. And it's like, no, you really don't, Duncan. You
Mm.
just have to kind of chill out and look after yourself and take care of yourself. And you tell people that you can't come, and you tell people, and you're not really letting them down. They probably don't even notice half the time. And just feeling a bit less responsible for everything, and believing that I I can take that step back if I need to. I think that's something that is an ongoing piece of work. Um, my wife is probably listening to this going, yes, well, Duncan, that was obvious when I first met you and I told you. Why didn't you listen?
What's that done for you? Giving yourself that permission to essentially say no to things, or to put yourself first when you know you need to. What's that done for you?
Well, I think it's how for two things. The best, I just think I'm just happier because of
Mm.
it. I think I just, I'm less stressed and uptight about stuff, and that is, the music money can't buy, isn't it? That's what you want, is to feel better and to feel happier. But actually, I think, I do write and think and speak better as a result of it, because it it takes the pressure off. I don't ever struggle with a blank page anymore. I just stick something down, and if it's good enough, it's good enough. If it's not, it's going to get rewritten. It's never good enough, by the way. It always gets rewritten.
Always, right? Yeah, I
Usually,
think.
usually about half a dozen times. But that just, that kind of feeling of not, I don't know, not feeling like everything is so dreadfully important on the line, I think has, made it easier for me to get my ideas out on paper. And ultimately, that is the way you become a better thinker and a better speaker and a better writer, is by thinking and speaking and writing, and not getting hung up about it and then not doing it. So yeah, and also showing it to other people. I think that I was always a bit nervous about showing things to other people. I don't have that problem so much now. So that's, yeah,
So how'd you overcome that? 'Cause
sort of an answer.
yeah, that fear of judgment, right? Of think, oh my gosh, what are people going to say? What are they going to think? Because so many of us battle that in so many different levels in our lives that we hold back, right? Just because some random person may say something mean, or maybe our friends don't understand. How do you how do you do that when you face those fears and those doubts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that is one of those things that is probably easier to say than do. Um, in essence, I do not consider my work to be myself.
Mm.
So if you don't like my speech, that's fine. If you don't like my book, that's fine. I no longer think that's got anything to do with me, really. I don't sort of see it as a judgment of my own self. Um, I see that as, half the time, well, I mean, if you want to write a book, then you need editorial guidance. That's the bottom line. And editors, what they do is, well, right, it's a book. It's like a little baby that you've created. like my little beautiful baby. And then you hand it to the editor, and the editor repeatedly punches your baby in the face. And it's not a very pleasant experience, but the baby grows up stronger.
Yeah.
Actually, that analogy might have broken down at some point. Anyway, it's quite painful, but it makes the work stronger. And that's mostly what criticism does. Now, the thing about a lot of criticism is people will tell you what they think you should do. And usually what they mean is, if I was you, I would do this. But of course, they're not me. So I very rarely do what they tell me to do. But if they're criticizing something, I realize that there is something that needs to change about it, and it needs to be adapted and worked out. And that, is actually really, really valuable, because that hones and sharpens your message, and that's what makes it better. So when people criticize what I do, yeah, look, I react like a human being. I get a bit kind of antsy about it, but I calm down, and then I do something about it, and that improves it. And ultimately, when you are trying to do stuff like help people to stop smoking and drinking, you want to be good at it, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You want to do a half-assed job, because if you do a half-assed job, people die.
Yeah, and I love what you said there about when, taking opinions and weighing the advice and then making the changes. Maybe you don't make the changes. One of the things I always stress is, one, I don't like to tell people what they should do, right? Because as soon as I do that, I'm putting my opinion in on your journey, and that's not my place. I can give you advice on, the technical, the tactical, whatever, technical stuff. But the other thing, Duncan, I think that is so important for people is filter who the hell they're going to listen to. Right? If you've never done what I'm trying to do, and your advice isn't going to carry the weight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's that Caring Greatly, Brene Brown, and you don't listen to the people who are in the bleachers, do you?
Right.
If you're in, it's quite relevant because I've got this lovely scar on my head now. If you're in the arena getting yourself punched in the head and you've got lovely scars like me, then you can listen. You should listen to those people. You absolutely should. Although, I mean, I like Hakiru Murakami, the Japanese novelist. I do quite like his novels, although my Japanese is a bit rusty, so I've only ever read them in English. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I like the translator's work. Who knows? Anyway, I particularly like his book "Novelist as a Vocation," which is about the art of writing. And one of the things that he says is, whenever people criticize your work, there is always something there that needs to change. They're not necessarily going to give you the way to change it, but they've highlighted something that you need to do, and that's always very precious and important for me. And yeah, um, and I particularly remember some feedback from this guy, and he was just like, he's a management consultant, and he just sort of like went, well, this is what you should do. And I was like, basically just told me to become a management consultant, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which is fine. And I'm not going to judge you, my friend. If you're enjoying it, go do it. But I am not a management consultant. I do not think like a management consultant, and I definitely ain't ever going to write like one. So thank you for highlighting that there's something that I need to do, but that's not what I'm going to do.
Well, I think something you said that is super important for people is that separation of who we are from what we do, right? And you're absolutely right. Like, you come to me and tell me this podcast needs to change here, here, and here. That is what I do. It's not who I am. It's not going to change my fundamental belief in myself.
Yeah, yeah, and I think far too often we kind of put our worth into our work, don't we? And we sort of say, well, I cannot be a valid human being until I earn, six figures. Actually, six figures isn't that much, isn't it? Seven figures.
Not anymore, huh?
So I can't be that valid human being until I've done this, until I've done that. And it's like, well, look, if you're not a valuable human being now, there's nothing you can do that's going to change that. And ultimately, of course, you are. That's
Yeah.
it's not. They're human rights. You know, you don't have to earn them. They're yours.
Hmm.
You were born with them, and no one can take them away from you. That it is, you know, inalienable, isn't it?
Uh,
And you have worth and you have value, whether you know it or not. You are enough. You absolutely are. You know, we fight that quite hard sometimes, but your worth is simply comes from your existence.
right. And it's internal. It's what you do on the inside. External comes and goes. And so many times people focus so much on external, earning this, getting that title, buying this house, and they get there and they find they're no happier than when they had nothing. And that's because the work, our value, our worth, our contributions to the world is inside of us.
Yeah, yeah, that old maxim. You know, every time I go on holiday, I find that I'm there, and it's very annoying, isn't it? It doesn't matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I thought it would be better when the sun was shining, but if you don't like yourself in the rain, you ain't gonna like yourself in the sun either.
Duncan, it's been awesome to have you on the show this week. Where can our audience connect with you on social, follow you, get your book, and become part of your community?
Yeah, so Real Men Quit is on Amazon, as is Get Over Indulgence. If you just put Real Men Quit in, I'll come up. I am basically really, really easy to find if you can spell my name, but most people can't even say it. So rather than try and explain how you spell Bascaram Brown, the easiest thing to find me is just put getover.uk. That's getover.uk into your search engine of choice, and that'll take you to a little bit of my website. You can get a PDF copy of Get Over Indulgence, my first book there, which is a little bit of my life and my story, and you know, it's mostly entertaining. I don't want to spoil it by saying you might learn something whilst you're being entertained. Yeah, that's getover.uk. It is actually a bit of my website as well, so you can you know, look around, find me on the socials. If you want to talk, you know, find me on the socials. I'm always happy to help. And if I can't help, I probably know someone who can.
Oh, I love it. Duncan, before we leave, let me ask you one question to close us out. And that is, what ripple effect do you hope your work creates in the world?
Oh, yeah, that's such a good question, and it's quite often when I've been working with people, I do sort of like end by asking them what they're going to do.
Mhm.
So my drinking, for example, I never thought that drinking took very much time because I just do it in the evening. You know, I work hard during the day, and then I'd drink later on. You know, I'd drink from 9 till midnight, something like that. You know, 3.5 hours a day. Didn't even seem like very much, and I was watching TV at the time anyway, so it didn't seem like to have a big impact on my life. But then when I stopped drinking, I had so much more time. And when I worked it out, I thought, well, 3.5 hours a day, 7 days a week is 24 hours, isn't it? You know, that's like literally an entire day, including the bit that you're asleep. So I got all of this time, and you know, I chose to spend that time writing and dancing and mucking about and having a family and all of those kind of things. But I often joke with people at the end. It's like, well, what are you going to do now? You've got all this time, you've got all this energy because you've taken the poison out of your life. What are you going to do? I usually joke about them writing a symphony or something like that. Yeah, I actually have worked with a few musicians, so you know, they have put some great music out into the world, and I don't want to say that I you know, I'm completely responsible for their talent or anything like that. I like to think I've done my little bit, you know, and I like to think I've helped, and it's almost incomprehensible. You know, the thousands of people I've worked with, what have they gone on to do that they wouldn't have done if they'd
Mm.
still been trapped drinking and smoking and eating junk? You know, it is amazing, and I always think that the impact that I'll have on the world is not really what I do; it's what somebody I help will have done.
I love that, Duncan. And I just want to say again, man, thank you for what you're doing in the world, for sharing your story, for helping others find their story. And no doubt your ripple effect is going to be felt many times beyond our lifetime because you have empowered people that change, which changes their family dynamics. And please know that's valued and much appreciated.
Yeah, and I work with people, and it's a generational thing. Their parents behaved in a particular way, they're behaving in that particular way, and they don't want to teach that to their kids. And that, breaking that cycle is enormously important, and it's a privilege.
Awesome. Duncan, thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to get you over here. We'll caravan around the country. We'll go on some long runs, and then I'll come see what this dancing's all about.
It sounds ideal. We'll do it.
Thank you so much for being on.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.